When I moved to New York for the first time, my brother, who's 3 years older than me, was already working for Nicole Miller in the corporate world. And I started working at the Soho store, which is no longer there. And, thought I wanted to work in fashion. I worked for Cynthia Rowley for a little while, which, they were a big deal back then.
Of course.
And I really wanted to work in fashion. And then my brother and I took that a step further. We moved back to South Florida and opened up Nicole Miller boutiques in Meisner Park. And if you know Boca Raton,
I know
Delray
Boca.
Beach, Meisner. And it was kind of new then. And we opened a store there. And then we opened one in Miami on Collins Avenue, I think. Yeah. I was like 21 running 2 retail operations between Miami and Boca, which is like the drive from LA to Orange County. It sucks. And I was like, this isn't it, And that was really when I was like, what am I going to do? I wasn't going to be a fashion designer because I didn't have that skill set or desire. And the only thing I ever really loved was hair.
Yeah.
Like I was always so into my own hair, so into hair. And I worked at a hair salon when I was in high school, when I was 16 as a receptionist. And I loved it. And they would blow out my hair. And I was like, would study it when was so fascinated. Like, how do you do that? And it was always this fascination for me. And so when the Nicole Miller thing kind of blew up because my brother and I were fighting all the time and it just wasn't the right thing for me, I was like, what now? Like, where do I go from here? And that's when I made the decision to go to beauty school, much to my parents' chagrin. They were like, really? Beauty school? Like, I was like, I don't know, but I just feel like this is what I'm meant to do. And I'll move back to New York and I'll do editorial and fashion shows and all that kind of stuff. And that was my plan, So I was going to go to beauty school in Boca Raton, which I did. I worked for a friend of mine. His dad owned a hair salon in Boca. I was his assistant. I learned so much from him. His name was John Peters, and he was so good to me. And then I moved back to New York, and I worked for John Sahag, who was very famous in his day. I feel like your mom would probably know who he is. He was like, the pioneer of dry cutting, and like every celebrity went to him. And he was in New York, and he was this like Italian. I think he's Italian. Long hair, very rock and roll. This gorgeous girlfriend. Like it was just he was this cool guy, had 2 big greyhounds that like sat around him when he was cutting hair.
I love that. That's such a vibe.
And his salon, ironically, was like, and it's still like this today. It like there's water fountains like throughout the salon, and he was like, he wanted it. It was very quiet and chill, which is funny because Drybar is so loud and crazy. Right. And I worked for him for a couple years until I was like, like a true 20-year-old. I was like, I think I'm gonna try something else. And he was like, I'll never forget because he was such a big impact in my life. He was like, you're really good at hair. Like you should stick with this. And I was like, I just don't think this is what I want to do. So I went to work at Rogers & Cowan because I had a couple girlfriends who were, working there.
That's what you do in New York in your 20s. You go and work in PR.
Yeah. So I did that. And that was super fun. And, I was telling you before, like they represented J-Lo and like all these cool artists and Faith Hill and Tim McGraw and Paul McCartney and James Taylor. It was so cool. And I got to go to all these concerts and meet all these people. And I was like having the time of my life, but I was also very like cognizant of like trying to find a husband because I wanted to have kids. I was really on the like, when am I going to have babies? Like I wanted to have kids as early as I can remember. And so, fast forward, I meet my first husband in New York City in a bar named Hell in the meatpacking district before the meatpacking district was what it is cool. Now. Yeah. It was literally meat hanging in the streets.
Yeah, it was not chic.
It was not. One thing led to another. We got married, and that's a whole other story. But, we had our first son a year after we got married, and Grant, who's now 19, and then our second son 2.5 years after that. And then a year after that, or give or take, we started Drybar, and he's the creative mastermind behind all the branding and stuff at Drybar.
So let's talk about that for a second. I love the story of Drybar because you just saw a hole in the market and you were like, duh.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, and I wasn't like looking for a white space. And I think that's what's interesting with the entrepreneurs. I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs, and there is this like, what can I do that's not being done? That wasn't me. I was looking for something to do. Like as much as I wanted those children, and I adore my boys. And now, I mean, and you'll see this as your kids get older, I think it just gets better. As much as I loved being a stay-at-home mom, I was just getting the itch to do something for myself. And it's like, what can I do with 2 little kids at home? Cam, my husband at the time, had a great job in advertising, but I was like, I got to do something. Like I'm losing my mind. And my poor husband would come home from work and I'd be like, like talking his ear off because I just wasn't like using my brain in a way that I wanted to be. It was just, I was like baby talk all day, with kids, which I was very grateful. And I felt very lucky that I was able to be a stay-at-home mom because that is a gift in and of itself. But I needed to do something else. And so it was like, what do I do? And I dabbled in a couple of things. I talk about this a lot in my book. I was sitting on my couch with my best friend who, and our sons who are now 19 were babies crawling around. And I was like, I just think I need to do something. And, what am I good at? And I was good at hair at this point. I'd been in the hair industry for so long. And I was like, I think I want to start a mobile blowout business where I go to your house while your baby's sleeping and I'll blow out your hair. And that was like going to be the pitch. And my best friend Paige was like, that's a great idea. I was like, what do you think I should charge? And I guess I instinctively knew, living in LA, and LA is filled with celebrities, and really it was expensive to get a blowout. And I was like, well, I want people to actually call me, so I should probably be pretty cheap. So we were like, $220, it's $40 easy. And so that was like the business plan. I got Cam, who was a creative, to make me a one-page website. I called it Straight at Home. And I was like, I put it on like a mommy, like Yahoo group, and said, hey, I'm a stay-at-home mom, longtime hairstylist. I want to start this business where I come and blow dry your hair while your baby's sleeping, and I'm going to only charge $40. What do you think? And I got inundated with emails. It was amazing. And so that was the exciting part to me that I realize now as I've started and grown other businesses that, even beyond Drybar, it's like the build. I love the build. Now I was running around town in like my Nissan Xterra with a duffel bag full of like, this ragtag team of, blow dryers and products. And I would just show up at people's houses, usually when their babies were sleeping because they had some downtime. And I'd blow out their hair, like usually in their kitchen or something, which was also kind of, with Drybar, as the mirrors are behind, that's where that came from, because I didn't have a client staring at themselves in a mirror, which is not good for anybody. Totally. And especially as a stylist, like you get very micromanaged, and I didn't like that as a stylist. So, when we were concepting Drybar, to fast forward a bit, I was like, I don't want mirrors in front of people. Like that was so beautiful about my mobile business. And I got so busy so fast that I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't meet all this demand. I was saying no more than I was saying yes. That's when I went to my brother. He had worked for Yahoo and he had some success, and he at the time had a real estate marketing company that he and his friend were doing. And I was like, hey, I think I might be onto something with this blow dry thing. And I'm at a crossroads. Like, I either need to hire stylists to meet the demand that I was having, or I need to open like a brick and mortar, and I need help to do that. And my brother's like a bald guy, and he's like, what? Like, why do women need a blowout? Like, why would women pay for this? Like, totally like the guy response, and it's funny, my husband at the time, Cam, also bald. It's just so weird. I was surrounded by bald men and starting this massive hair empire. He was like, you get your nails done once a week. And I rarely notice, but when you get a blowout, because my hair is so curly naturally, he's like, this is the first thing I notice. He's like, I think this is the new nail salon. And so, they both kind of got on board pretty quickly. But I didn't know where to start. My brother was, like I said, the overachiever, more of the business mind in our family than me. But I knew hair. Going back to when we worked together at Nicole Miller, it wasn't our thing. Neither one of us were happy. But this was like, oh, I knew this business really well. My brother didn't know hair, but he knew business. So that it was such a chocolate peanut butter, brilliant, combination of us coming together. And from a respect perspective, because, I brought a lot to the table that he didn't know, and he brought a lot to the table that I didn't know. And then you add Cam into it, who's a brilliant creative. And the three of us were like, it was this like amazing team where we didn't pay ourselves for so long. We couldn't have afforded to hire people of our kind of caliber and experience.
Like agencies and creative teams.
Yeah, it would have cost so much money, but we had it built in. And so, I said, hey, I want to turn this into a brick and mortar. And my brother, helped me do it.